Yeah. Welcome to LSD, the podcast of life, song, and death, where we talk about the most psychedelic experience called the human experience. So I got on my podcast today, one of my friends. I talked to friends and strangers and everybody in between. Today I got a friend, old pastor of mine, spiritual leader, whatever you want to call it. Her name is Allie. And Alison, Tyler, however you want to call yourself officially.
Yeah.
But
Whatever you want to call me, I'll probably answer. It's
Mom
okay.
sometimes. Yeah, I don't know. But
Hi, Kales.
yeah, how's day?
Good.
Yeah,
Yeah. Things are good.
Good.
Things are good.
yeah. So we were talking, we talked a little bit before the podcast. I'm talking about what we're going to talk about, maybe, kind of. But I guess just give like an overview on what, like a high level overview of how you got to where you are today.
Yeah.
And then we can go from there.
Yeah. Well, the first thing when I was driving over here, I was thinking about the name of this podcast.
Uh-huh.
And I was thinking how it's so cool because life, it happens to us all.
Mhm.
Meaning, I mean, that sounds stupid, but meaning
We're a very deep podcast here. Yeah.
you got to go deep. No, but it does. The ups and the downs and the getting kicked in the teeth, and everybody experiences it. And death, as in the end of this life, but also all the little mini deaths that you have when you get kicked in the teeth or when you decide to stand back up different than you were when you went down. And that's the whole thing. And also just about song, about music, and how I'm sure that there are some people on earth that don't connect to music as much as others.
Totally.
But I think that most people really, really resonate with the frequency of sound and have memories that are associated with certain songs and stuff like that. And so as much as this is like, it makes it feel like, wow, this is super wide open. It could go any direction. It really is something that is so intrinsic to all of us to realize that we all go through crap. I mean, we all get dragged through the mud, and it's all in what do you do with it when you get up? And we all experience death in different ways. And I'll talk about it later.
Totally.
But I've definitely had some real experiences, as you know, with death. And everything about life is just, what do you do with it? What do you do with it? And music has been a huge part for me.
Me too.
Of how to get through it. And when you're sad, you turn something on. When you're super happy, you turn something on. When you're bored, you turn a song on.
Totally.
And so anyway.
When are you more of a mope in the sadness? If you're sad, do you put sad music on, or you do the reverse? Or does it depend?
I kind of do that. Well, it does depend. It does depend. If I'm tired and sad, I'll go for the mopey thing.
Oh yeah. Nice. Okay. Yeah. I've never thought about that too deeply into it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But I would say for the most part, I'm trying to be more up if I'm feeling down.
Yeah.
And that actually, I thought about this too. That actually comes from my mom. And so, I'm a preacher's kid and born into my dad was an American Baptist minister. And my mom, I think she was an English teacher, and then I think she kind of got lost in there. Like, I don't think she ever
English school teacher.
Yeah, English school teacher in high school, and then when she got married and then got pregnant, of course, back then women did not work, you know? And so I think she kind of got a little lost in not really knowing who she was, and then she really battled with depression and stuff, and but through that all, and it was bad. I mean, it was bad. I mean, there was abuse and we all kinds of stuff. And my dad is the first one to say that he was so immature. He just didn't know how to be a dad, how to be a husband. And so he was very active in all areas of the church, not just pastoring it, but
Right.
he also kind of conveniently was on every board there was. So he was constantly gone.
To distract.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. To just really be away.
Yeah.
And so we got the brunt of all the stuff that my mom was dealing with. And, but kind of crazy that she was the one that was dealing with depression so much, but yet she was the one that really taught me how to find good stuff in the worst circumstances. And just by watching her do it over and over. And so I think, yeah, so the answer to the music question is I'm always wanting, okay, this was bad. This was whatever just happened was really bad.
Yeah.
But there's got to be something good in it, because otherwise, why do you want to get up and keep going?
Yeah.
Of
course. Yeah, there's in a book I read, it said every negative opportunity has a seed of equal or greater benefit if you have a positive mental attitude.
That is really great. Yes.
So, but the caveat is you have to have a positive mental attitude in the process, because then you won't see it if you don't.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
And so,
yeah. I was thinking about this too, so I was born in Boston. We moved to Tonawanda, New York when I was just 8 months old, and we lived there until I was 8 years old. And during that time, one of the things that happened that was very traumatic was this huge lightning storm that came. I was 7 years old, and we lived in the parsonage, which is, the house right next to the church that they gave to the pastor, the minister, and his family. And that church had this giant steeple on it. And this thunderstorm came through that was so, I've never experienced one like that again. And all of the lightning was hitting the steeple of the church. So it was all drawn right there. So it was over our house.
oh, geez.
And my window looked out at the church. So I saw all of the lightning, and it wasn't like rumble, rumble, bam, rumble, rumble. It was like bam, bam, bam. It was so insane. And I wanted to run into my parents' bedroom, but I was afraid to get up by the window, and my bed was pushed up against the wall. So I turned to squeeze my body between the bed and the wall, and I heard this crazy sound. I looked up, and I saw my ceiling burn, and it went shoo. And that was probably really loud in the microphone, but it hit the floor. And it was a lightning bolt came through right there next to my bed. And I screamed.
Yeah.
And I hear my dad running to come get me. And right before he opened up the door, 2 more came down right in, like, shoot. It was that sound. It was so crazy. And then smoke. And then he opened the door up, and he looked down and saw the holes and was like, oh, He got me. And we took off, and we ran across the street. And, but the reason I'm bringing this up is because, so there were 5 of us in the house experiencing this. My mom and my dad, my brother, me, and my sister.
Yeah.
And I just talked to my mom on the phone recently, and she was like, oh, honey, I have to get off the phone. A really bad thunderstorm's coming through. And she stopped and she said, your father and I have never been the same since that storm when you were little.
Mm-hmm.
And we both it's kind of abnormal how afraid of storms we get.
Totally.
And I hung up the phone, and I thought about my brother and I went the complete opposite. We're storm chasers now. Oh my gosh. If there's a storm, I want to be outside. I want to be looking up at the clouds going, this is freaking awesome. What is happening? And my brother's the exact same way.
How's your sister?
My sister is like,
whatever.
It's a storm.
Yeah.
I mean, she's way more normal about it. but my parents went all the way that way, and my brother and I went all the way this way. But all 5 of us experienced the same storm. You know what I mean? And I was thinking about like life and how that is.
Yeah.
We can experience really horrible things, and what is it in a person that makes them find something super cool in it, something life-giving in it. And I think it's a series of things, but I think it's examples of people around you that you've seen other people do it, like my mom.
Absolutely.
And I also, for me, it's my faith, God. I'm a Christian, and but I find it fascinating, which is why I was actually a psychology major when I was in college. I
Because of the
did
lightning
nothing
storm?
with it because of a lightning storm when I was 7 years old. No, because I've always fascinated, what makes one person act this way and another person acts totally different when the stimulus was the same thing.
Totally.
And it's such a complicated, complex answer of your brain makeup and your other past experiences and
there's even
everything, but
sorry, say that again.
well, no, I was just going to say, and just everything that goes with that.
Right.
But what were you going to say?
Yeah, it could even be they're now figuring out epigenetics and things of why are some folks scared of spiders and some folks aren't, and it could be even 17 generations back, someone died of a spider and it's just imprinted on their DNA and it's passed down from generation to generation, and then it choose to reveal itself in that person instead.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Or it could be something that the mom's goes through while you're in her belly.
Right. That is true too.
And then you get the fear. She never even had it, but it was just the chemicals that gets put into you while you're being formed.
So, but here's my question for you, and I'll tell you what my answer is to it. But so that all makes sense, and I think it's really true. I mean, there's just all kinds of reasons why we are how we are and respond to things the way that we do. But do you think that can be learned you can learn a new way? Or do you think it's genetics and you're kind of stuck?
I think you can, at least you can have learning mechanisms to bypass it.
Yeah, that's good.
It wouldn't be a way to change yourself, but just to be able to bypass that. Is that hard? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If it was something that you learned, you can unlearn it. But if there's some things that are just in your DNA and you just know it, and then you can just learn how to navigate with that thing, and then it can become second nature. So it's as if you outlearned it, but it's still there in your if you decide to go back to default settings.
Yeah, I like what you just said, because that I think so often we find something in ourselves we don't like.
Totally.
And so we try to fight against it instead of accepting it and flowing with it.
Correct.
And then loving yourself enough to say, let's come up with a new thing. Let's I like that. I like that a lot, because I really do. I believe the same way that I just think, there's just negative people. There's people who have such a tendency, no matter what happens, it's going to come out of their mouth. Even when it's funny, I'll have somebody try to give me a compliment like, oh, you're so good at this. But rather than saying, oh, you're so good at this, they'll say, well, at least you're not like so-and-so who's shitty at that,
Right,
and you're
right.
like, wait. You could have said the same thing, but it could have been so much better.
Totally.
And that's what I think you can learn. I think I think that a lot of the being negative is a learned thing too, that part of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because that's just goes back to what you were saying. It's each person can go through the same scenario, but has a different result.
Yeah.
And so it's you're just choosing to be a negative, and then that becomes second nature to you.
It does. It's a habit.
It's
like a bad habit.
Yep.
It just flies out of your mouth a certain way. And
yeah.
Well, and so that kind of takes me back to, growing up, because I was in this kind of volatile family that cleaned up really well on Sunday mornings, because that's what you did. And there wasn't a recognition of it. It how some people say they're an alcoholic or a drug addict or whatever, and they have these things happen, and then they have 2 or 3 days of deep remorse. And it's not that it's fake. It's sometimes it maybe is, but a lot of times it's very, very real. And it's a recognition of, oh, I did this and I'm so sorry. And maybe it's a cycle and it keeps happening. But in my family, the hardest thing was there was never a recognition of it. We never talked about it. To this day, I've never talked to my parents about what happened to us as kids.
Wow.
And and it's funny, I talked to my brother and sister when my parents were in their 50s and then they were in their 60s. And every time we would say, should we bring it up? Should we talk about what happened? And somehow it would never be the right time. And so it's weird. It's this super weird thing. And it made it really hard to come out of it. Does that make sense? Because there was no recognition, there was no conversation of that happened and it shouldn't have. Then that spiraled me into then I was making my own choices that were smacking me in the face. And, going away to college at JMU and doing all the things.
Yeah.
And of course, then it was the 80s and you did all the things.
Oh, yeah.
in
Yeah.
the 80s.
Yeah.
And so I met my husband, my boyfriend, obviously, and then he became my husband there at JMU. And he had his own dysfunction in his family, his mom being an alcoholic, and his dad left, couldn't take it. And then John was my husband was the one that, being 7 years older than his little brother, kind of became the man of the house. And had to keep everybody safe and do all kinds of stuff. And that was very traumatic, and crazy things happened with him. And so, but again, he didn't really talk about it either. You couldn't miss it because she was drunk and you would see it.
Totally.
You know what I mean? So there wasn't an easy way for them to kind of clean up on Sunday morning like it was for my family, but there wasn't a lot of direct communication about it. So for him, he had the same thing where he never fully came to grips with what happened and got healing from it. He just kind of kept living. And that's the thing. Like, you either wake up one day and you decide you're going to live on purpose.
Totally.
Or you're just going to keep cycling and just living. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like,
yeah.
You get up, you go to work, you come home, you watch TV, you go to sleep. Over and over,
Absolutely.
And then typically, if there is something that you haven't dealt with, then you start to get depressed. It starts to get worse. Maybe you start drinking more. Maybe
substance,
you start, yes, exactly. So, and then it makes it that much worse. And
because then the next day you're tired or worn out or something like that, and then you have zero desire to change, but you want to because you whatever, but at the same time you're not.
Right.
Because the biggest fear in life is the fear of change. In my opinion. Most people are comfortably uncomfortable in their position because change is more scary than
it is,
or is more uncomfortable than doing the change itself.
Wow. Yes.
So,
I agree with that. I agree with that. And a lot of people say their biggest fear is the fear of failure, but I think most people's fear is the fear of succeeding.
Yeah.
Because then it changes everything.
Absolutely.
And something just ended. The old pattern that was, you hated it, but it was familiar.
Yep.
just ended.
You got that
and
right.
Now you're doing something new, and it's scary as hell. Yeah.
And then you have pressure on top of it if you're succeeding as well, because then there's like multiple facets to this. Because then you have like if you're succeeding, then you have pressure to continue to succeed instead of just continuing doing what you've already done to succeed.
Yeah.
Most people will try and like, how do I keep this up? How do I keep this up? And then by having that anxiety, it ends it.
It crumbles.
Where in reality, it's just keep doing what you're doing, and then you'll be good.
Right.
You'll just keep working, and then people don't like the pressure either. Most people don't like pressure.
Yes. So being at JMU and meeting John and both of us coming from these places where you didn't really talk about stuff. You just kind of acted like everything was normal and we were all okay. And so I know I've said this to you before, but his dysfunction matched my dysfunction so well. It was like a puzzle piece, like it clicked together. And it really was sort of that that codependent relationship of just like, I have to be with him all the time. And which was I mean, I loved him. It was wonderful, but it was also so messed up in so many ways because I was so messed up as an individual and he was so messed up. But you didn't really talk about it. And then we got married and had kids, 2 daughters, and then now we're doing family.
Yep.
And neither one of us really having good role models at all to figure out what does it look like to be married? What does it look like to be a mom, to be a dad? And
there's no handbook for that either.
There's not a handbook.
Speaking of that thing that you said at the beginning, which was life happens to every one of us.
Yes.
It's the same thing. There's no handbook for that.
Right.
You're just like, oh, I have a child now. How do I do that?
Right. And the craziest thing is the stuff that you hated the most about your childhood. If you don't deal with it, you repeat it. And you don't, and then you hate yourself.
Interesting.
Because you hated that, and then all of a sudden you're going, what?
I'm doing exactly what my parents did.
I'm doing what my parents did. And that was, I finally, me personally, got counseling for the first time when I almost hurt Jordan when she was 2 years old. And it was going to be a severe thing.
Right.
And not just like a little spank. And I realized it and laid her down and ran.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I'm my mom. I'm my mother. I can't, how did that happen? And it was because I never dealt with it.
Weird.
And so I started going to therapy. And that's what, part of what was stirring my faith up more. Being you would think I would have had a strong faith from being little with the pastor's, daughter.
Yep.
But
if you want to have a stereotype, though, it's pastor's kids are the
opposite. Yes. And I was a perfect PK. Yes. I was rebellious and everything else. And I think we talked about this before too, that my parents actually gave me the gift of not telling me what to believe. They just kind of offered it to me. But at the time, I hated it because I thought I need something. I need somebody to tell me what to do because I'm not doing anything right now. And so as I'm realizing I cannot be my mom, John was drinking more, kind of showing evidence of his mom. And his depression he just sank and went down hard and fast. And then I did the thing that I did when I was little because I was my mom's biggest cheerleader. So I started doing all the emotional tap dancing and I'm always happy. Look at me. I'm always happy. Come have fun and hang out with me and you'll feel better. But in the meantime, I'm going, oh my gosh, I almost beat the crap out of my daughter.
Right.
I'm not happy. I'm not good. What is going on? And so that not dealing with stuff and just thinking, no, I'm okay. I'm okay is what it just gets you. In the end. I mean, it just does.
Physically too. It's weird how like if you don't deal with something, your physical body represents it. It shows it.
Yeah.
It shows it.
Yeah. Oh, it does.
It's like why massage therapists learn psychology as well is or at least my brother does, but I know like a lot of massage therapists are into that holistic understanding too, because like it's like, okay, if this person is coming in with stress, then I need to work on their shoulders instead of their
Right.
legs or whatever. Someone's coming in with something else,
Yeah.
then I need to work somewhere else.
It's so true. It's so true. And I think finally science and the holistic side of things are catching up so that people are starting to really, really talk about the connection, body, soul, spirit,
Yep.
emotions, how it affects you and makes you sick, and
Oh yeah.
vice versa. And which is so important, because that was a lot of my mom. My mom was hit by a car when she was 7,
Dang.
and almost died. And the process back then was, oh my gosh, when was she born? 35. So she was 7. So for 42, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. She was in the hospital, and that medicine is very different today than what it was back then. And she was so much by herself in a hospital room, and it lasted for, I don't know, a year almost of being in and out of the hospital for surgeries and stuff like that. And her parents weren't able to come be with her, and
Oh my God.
it was just really crazy. So she felt abandoned and all of those things.
That's actually one of the theories of why the Unabomber went psycho.
Really?
Because like his first 6 months of his life he had to be in like an isolation tank, so he didn't get touched as a baby.
Oh wow. Yeah.
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 Like he didn't get loved at all as a baby.
Yeah.
Like his first 6 months of his life, they just cried and cried in the isolation tank because
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? So crazy. So yeah. So for me, kind of fast forward a little bit. So my marriage kept, as much as I was trying to have the outward appearance of Sunday morning cleaned up and everything's great, it was so crumbling. And he was getting more and more depressed. And then we finally split up. He said he was done, and that didn't happen in my family. Like, there's no one divorced in my family, which is unheard of, I realize.
yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
But, my parents have now been married 66 years, and my grandparents were beyond that as well, and both sides. And so you just didn't do that.
Yeah.
And so that was an extra blow, like an extra death. It was an extra failure, on top of the fact that, I knew it wasn't working, but I just kept doing the part of me that was like looking for the good was, until I got really real, it was a coping skill instead of a great way to live. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was just my way of, no, everything's going to be fine. It's all going to be fine. It's all going to work out. I know it sucked today, but tomorrow is going to be better. And then all of a sudden tomorrow wasn't going to be. And
I get that perfectly because my personality, I did the Enneagram test, and my default is avoid pain. And so I don't remember if that's 7 or 9, but it doesn't make a difference. But I have it written down.
7 is adventure, I think.
Okay, so it might be 9 then.
Could be 9. I think it's 9.
Yeah, but anyways, it's mine's avoid pain, and so if I have the option to avoid pain, I'll avoid it versus go through it.
Yeah.
So I've had to. So that goes back to what we were talking about earlier: is do you think that you can outwork your DNA? You just have to learn who you are, and then learn coping, or AKA just skill sets to navigate it. So now my default, because I've done it for 8 years or so, 10 years almost now, but is I have to, the natural is to avoid pain, but I have to see the prize on the backside of the pain more valuable than
the avoidance
of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so if I can see as like, okay, it'll be worth to go through it, then I'll go through it.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, and this obviously isn't for everybody because there are always different circumstances. But for me, the biggest thing of, like you said, realize who you are
Yeah.
and accept it, like we were just saying, and learn to kind of flow through it. But also for me, it's like the question of, okay, when did this first start? Like, was I really born with this, or did something happen?
Yeah.
And then I went, I don't ever want to feel that again.
Totally.
And then it built into a defense mechanism, a coping skill, whatever. And so for me, I'm always like, you know what? This is the only life I have, and I am going to get as healed up as I can.
Oh yeah.
And I don't want to be the person that's constantly going,
Oh, yeah.
what's going on? What's wrong with me? Does any,
Yep.
But at the same time, I don't want to just learn how to deal with stuff. I want to be like, no, I'm actually going to get rid of that. I'm actually going to go after that thing.
Totally.
And get healed up from it. But it's terrifying. I mean, it just is.
It is. You're talking to someone who avoids pain at all costs.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, it's very scary. But
Yeah.
I've learned how to I've learned the reward on the back end of it is what I like. I like that way more. And so
Yeah.
so in my weird, sometimes it happens just subconsciously. Subconsciously, I cause self-sabotage so that I can get the reward on the back end.
Oh, wow.
I've recognized that recently.
Yeah.
Recently meaning like a couple years ago.
Yeah.
That I was like, oh, I'm self-sabotaging relationships so that I can get over the relationship, so I can get that reward again on the back end.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's interesting. So what have you done to not do that anymore?
Just recognize it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, is this chaos actually chaos, or did I cause this on purpose? It's just being self-aware.
Yeah.
Doing it enough times, it's like, okay, it's just assessing the situation and being like, okay, is this actually a conflict between us, or is this something I can just deal with? I was trying to make conflict on purpose.
Right. Yeah. That's good.
And it's
That's
like,
good.
okay, this is not actually conflict between you and me. It's all inside.
my
It's all
conflict.
inside of me, and I
My
need to.
internal conflict.
I just need to deal with it myself,
Yeah.
and you're free to go. I'm not gonna point blame on you or anything like that.
Yeah.
This is all inside here, and so.
So one of the things that I feel like I'm jumping around a little bit, but one of the things that I know that also can go along with that is the shame factor.
Oh yeah.
The something's really wrong with me. And then it can be hard to face it because you don't want to admit it. Like, wow, I could have actually hurt my kids the way my mom did. Like, what? Are you kidding? Like, how is that possible? And then, we're not dealing with that. That's not true. There's no way that that's true. It can't be true. And then holding your daughter up by the feet, about to throw her against the wall, have to realize, oh shit, no, I can.
Yeah.
It is in me. But then it's got to be, see, that shame wants to come in and just crush you and keep you in that place. And so it's like recognizing this is what's in me. It doesn't mean it's who I am. And it's one of the biggest things that as I've been going through all this stuff, like I was abused as a kid. And I could come out of it as an abused kid.
Yep.
Or I could come out of it as
Something that happened to you.
it just happened to me. It's just a thing. It's just a part of my life. And I actually have a really good relationship with my mom now, which is crazy, even though we've never talked about it. I mean, okay, so how good could it really be? But I mean, it's
never know.
amicable. I love her, and I'm not holding a grudge. I'm not whatever. It doesn't hold me back. Maybe I should say it that way.
Yeah.
And So, and I think that that is so key to, and that's kind of the life and death while you're here still in this flesh. It's the recognition of, okay, that happened to me, but you know what? That's not who I am. And it could have been a death of me. It could have totally changed my personality. I mean, there's horrible things that happen to people that, oh my gosh, and then they have all these fears and they want to stay inside and they become a Unabomber or what I mean? It's just true that things happen, and it happens to all of us, maybe certainly not that severe to all of us, but it's the recognition that just because this happened to me doesn't mean I am an abused kid. It just means I'm a person that was abused as a kid.
Totally.
It's totally different, right?
Yeah. But some people, they don't have an identity to begin with, and so they use that as a way to have an identity in the world because they don't have the confidence to. And so it's like, that is my identity.
Yep.
That thing unfortunately brings me a twisted view of value in my own life, because now I have something that I can parade around and be proud of, like a twisted proud.
Yeah, no. Yeah. And because it goes back to what we said before, that it's sort of that thing that can then be the excuse as to why you don't want to face the fear of succeeding and changing and growing, because you can say, oh, well, like it's that safety factor of, I'm going to try this new thing, but you know what, if it doesn't work, I was an abused kid.
Yeah.
And you have that, and it'll make everybody look at me and go, oh, that's right, she was an abused kid. And that sounded like I'm making light of it. I'm not, but it is that sort of safety net sometimes for people. And so in my story that goes on, so here I'm trying so hard not to be my mom, realizing that it's in me and I could totally repeat history. And then here's John not wanting to be his mom, but also not wanting to be his dad. And his dad committed adultery against his mother. And then I found out towards the end of our marriage that John was doing the same thing. And so both of us are not wanting to be our parents and hating what happened to us as kids and not dealing with it internally, not talking about it and realizing how it truly affected us as kids, just stuffing it and keep on going, and then completely repeating it. And in our own parental lives and in marriage. And I went the route of lots of therapy, lots of support with people around me, and he unfortunately went the route of suicide. And he just realized he didn't see a way out, and he had become the very thing he did not want to be.
Right.
And the shame factor hit him so hard. And so my kids were 14 and 17 when it happened. And that was super rough. And that's another thing that it's a huge thing that we all went through, but that I caught myself saying that I was a widow.
Yeah.
Which I am.
Technically.
Yeah. But I caught that identity was starting to like settle on me, that, my husband committed suicide, and the shame of, all the head game and all of the what ifs, if onlys, and then also the shame of, what does it mean for me as a person, as a wife, as a woman, was I not enough? He was, not faithful to me. And then he ended his life. And what if I had been more? What if I had been different? What if it's such a tremendous head game. And it's where, for me, I could not have done it without my faith, without God. Hands down, could not have made it through, because it was God who created me, who kept reminding me who I was,
Right.
who I am.
Yeah.
And I'm not the label of wife and mother and all that. I'm me first. And then I do those things. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that goes back to like what you were saying, we were saying earlier of we can take on identities of the trauma, and now we are that thing.
Yep.
I heard it once a while back, and it was like, it's so true. Like I go even farther back of we aren't even our thoughts. Our thoughts are transient within ours.
So true. Yes.
And so
yes.
I have thoughts that I'm like crazy stuff, and I'm like, where I used to would have been like, oh my God, I'm thinking about X, Y, or Z.
Right.
And then, for instance, speaking of suicide, I have thoughts all the time in my head, but I'm like, it just goes in, goes out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where back in the day, I would have been like, oh, I have a problem that I need to be worried about.
Yeah.
No, I don't have a problem to be worried about.
Right.
That's just a thought. Just like, okay.
Right.
And I think it might have been because back in my childhood, I actually did struggle with it when I was a child for like a year or whatever, and then I got over it, and then it hasn't been like an actual. Now it's like just a fleeting thought that's still trying to see if can come back in.
Yeah.
And I'm like, life is too good. Even in my absolute worst and worst forever and ever, it's still better than suicide. So
Yes.
yeah, because I still have the option to figure it out, even if it's at the worst, at the umpteenth degree.
Yeah.
Like if we're still living, we still have the option to figure it out.
Yes. If we're still living, we still have the option to learn something new, to learn a new way, to
potentially
to even just full out live a new way.
Totally.
And it's the most freeing thing when you lock into that.
Mm-hmm.
And the thought thing, that's huge, Kaylee, because it's so true that people are like, so many people want to say, well, this is just who I am.
Yep.
And the thoughts go with it, and the behaviors go with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we like to do all kinds of things. We like to say, well, I came from a really loud family, so I'm just in your face. It's just the way I am.
Yeah.
Versus knowing, okay, you might not like that I'm in your face, and I can learn how to not be and still be me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that I'm not yelling at you.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, that's oversimplified, but
yeah.
But it is so true, and that it is key, and so many people don't realize what you have realized, that your thoughts are not even you. They're not. I mean, you can like. What is the thing that? See, now I'm not going to be scientific. It's not going to sound great, but the part of your brain that is we only use like 10% or so of our brains, and
Possibly.
if we could use the full brain capacity, and we would be constantly aware of everything down to the atoms in the molecules in the air and stuff, and we couldn't focus on one thing. I couldn't focus on talking to you because I'd be thinking of the microphone and the curtains and the and maybe the picture of the cute dog behind you.
That's rough Einstein there.
Oh, very good.
Does it look like Einstein?
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah. No. Maybe I have 11% then, because I'm always thinking about other stuff.
Yeah. Well,
which used to be a downfall of mine, but now now I see it as a superpower that I could.
It is when you recognize that you have it, and you don't think it's something wrong with you.
Right.
And I'm ADHD and I can't focus, and I'm hyper and I'm all over the place.
Totally.
If you can like embrace it and go, oh no, I'm this is actually pretty cool, and I can learn to use it like a superpower.
Yeah.
Like you said. Yeah.
Yeah. ADHD or ADD, those people aren't actually, in my opinion, they aren't actually have downfalls. I think it's because everyone has the ability to focus on something, and I probably have it because my brain's just always going everywhere.
Right.
But one of the reasons why they can't focus is because the subject that they're trying to focus on is too boring to them.
Yeah, well,
And so it's
that is
like,
true. And I think they're learning a lot about that in schools now, which is helpful.
Yeah, because if you give someone who's like that has that brain process something that they're actually interested in, they're gonna dive so deep into it,
Right. And
like so deep into it, and everything zones out, and then they get so deep, and then they're like, all right, now I type to get back out of this hole of focusing on this one thing.
Yeah.
And that's what their superpower is. As soon as they find what they're interested in, game over.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. So you were talking about how that not labeling yourself as a widow, and at that point.
Yeah. And just realizing that at that point, even at that point, that I hadn't fully come to know who I am, because I was being the wife that I thought I was supposed to be, doing all the tap dancing and trying to always be happy and upbeat, and trying to be the mom who was compensating for the dad he was so depressed he wasn't able to actually participate in a lot of stuff, and then he'd have these great days. And so we've said before that it's possible that he was undiagnosed bipolar, because he would have these tremendous days and then he would have these super low days. And in the unpredictableness, if that's a word, of that was probably the most damaging of it. And my mom was the same way. You just didn't know what was going to set her off. And so I began the process of really discovering, who am I? Like, it's so bad, I didn't even know what my favorite color was at that point in my life.
Wow.
I had so lost my identity to try and become something that would make a difference in his life. And, but the greatest thing of me beginning that journey, so if you want to talk about a death that happened, that was one right there.
Yep.
That was the
Very
death.
physical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yes, but even for me, the death of who I thought I was. And I thought I was all my thoughts and all my actions, I'm a mom, I'm a worship leader, that's who I am. And that's just what I did. And a lot of it, I loved to do it. So it's not to make light of what I did, but it's not who I am. And so to really be able to let go of that was crucial for me, because it's what allowed me to step out of that shame. Because if I really was if that's really who I was, then I was crappy at it. I was terrible at it. Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it was so freeing, and the shame could just go, that's not even who I was.
Right.
I'm not on this earth to solely make somebody else happy all the time. It's great to do that, but that's not my purpose and me,
Absolutely.
my existence. So
I think everyone has their own. My own belief is that everyone has their own autonomy and responsibility for their own thoughts, actions, everything like that. So if they're sad, it's not my job.
Yeah.
If they're unhappy, it's not my job. If they are angry, it's not my job to make them not angry.
See, that's super healthy.
Do I do it the best? Not all the time, because I'm the same way. I don't like pain. So if someone is uncomfortable or unhappy with me, then I want them to, because that is an uncomfortable connection with me and that person, or no matter what it is. And so it's like, whether it be a person, road rage or anybody, it's like I would want to rather get the pain of the uncomfortableness greatness between us, but at the same time, it's not my job.
Right.
It's not my job, because at the same time, it's hard to overlay sometimes my own filter that I have for myself for other people. Like, I take personal responsibility. If I'm unhappy, it's my job. I don't want anybody else to try to make me happy.
Right.
If I'm pissed off or something, it's my job to make me not pissed off and figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And so, but it's really hard to do the flip flop and put that same responsibility on them as well and say, no, it's not.
Right.
If they're angry.
Right.
No,
Well, especially too, if you've set up a pattern
Mm-hmm.
and then the other person is expecting you to come in, like that was with me.
Oh, yeah.
I got locked in that pattern. So yes, I did it because that's what I did as a kid.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, oh, I got this. I can be his greatest cheerleader. I can make him happy. I can, right? And then he came to expect that. And so I got locked into this thing. So then if I had a bad day, there was no room for me to have a bad day, because like I was upsetting the apple cart. Like, what are you doing? That's what I do. That's not what you do.
Oh, weird.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And that can happen all across for everybody. You can lock yourself into that pattern of whatever it is, being the fixer, being the peaceful one of the family, the peacemaker.
Yeah.
Well, no, you label yourself, and then other people label you as well. It's not necessarily a verbal thing. It's
Totally.
just a thing. Being able, going back to what we said in the very beginning, being able to recognize, oh, this is a pattern that's not good. I'm not going to fight it. I'm not going to tell myself, oh, you're horrible. Why would you let yourself get into that pattern? You're just going to like accept it and go, wow, I see totally where that came from. That's what I did when I was little. It bled right into my marriage. It worked really well for a while until it didn't. And then it really crashed and burned.
Yeah.
And so to like see it as, again, that's not who I am. It also isn't, I'm not the one, it's not my identity that I was in a failed marriage, right? It's not like,
yeah, exactly.
It's just what happened. And so it's that place of, it's such a weird, what are the words I'm trying to say? It's this weird place where you don't want to get in apathy. You don't want to get where you're non-emotional, where it's just, well, that's just what happened to me, and I'm moving on. You want to emotionally connect to it, but you just don't want to drown in it by saying it's who you are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
And so that was really my healing process, was starting to let myself see the patterns and see my own responsibility. Like you said, it's my responsibility. I am my own responsibility, but also not take on any extra responsibility of other people, like you've said. And there's that fine line of, I really need to feel this right now.
Yep.
But I also need to recognize it's not defining me. It's just what happened.
Yeah.
So, and that's been a really long process, just to be real with you. But again, it's so worth it. It's so worth it to just come out of those old patterns. So, even if you're someone who you didn't even realize you were in patterns and you're recognizing it today and you're 75 years old, it doesn't matter.
Totally.
Just recognize it and realize, oh, that's not who I am. Why did I always think that's who I was? Why did I always think I was the shy one? Why did I always think I was no, I never have thought that. But
Me either.
I was going to say, you know that better. You looked at me like, what? No, but you know how people do that. And they'll say, oh, no, I never do that because I'm blank, fill in the blank. And then we limit ourselves. And so life, song, death, if you really want to live, you got to decide to live. It sounds so stupid, but you just do. You have to decide to grab hold and say, this is my life, not rebellious and jerky and this is my life, but this is my life. And I am going to choose to live on purpose. I'm going to choose to find something so good in this. And that's actually coming from my faith. That's actually a biblical thing, is that, God turns all things to good. And that sounds very contrite. That sounds very Pollyanna, but he's going to help you find the good in the things that you go through. And if you choose to be open to it. And so, it's people meet me today and it's funny. It's not funny. It's not the right word, but it makes everybody uncomfortable. People will say, "Oh, so what happened to your husband?" And then you go, "Do I just say he was super depressed?" I mean, because I'm okay to say it, but
Totally.
the other person has no clue what they're about to hear.
Absolutely.
And then really quickly they're backpedaling, going, "Oh, why did I ask that question?"
Yeah.
And so you don't want to, but
I love those moments.
oh my
I
gosh.
love making people uncomfortable.
Well, it's been the funniest thing because my kids have come so far, and had their own healing processes and done so well with that. But
I do have to ask that. Does Jordan not like upside down roller coasters? From the hanging from the feet.
she actually loves roller
Oh,
coasters.
good.
It's Sarah that hates them.
Oh, good. Well, then great. Well,
That's so funny. Oh.
Well, she
She
learned how
did
to
not have a traumatic experience, and she doesn't have any memory of that. Praise God. You know? But
I had to ask.
yeah, but it's funny that so when people hear that my husband committed suicide, now it's been 14 years.
It's been a while, yeah.
So for me, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
And a lot of life has happened since then.
Oh, yeah.
But for them, they hear it and they expect me to be a certain way.
Totally.
So I still have people on Facebook and I love them. It's not, and I'm not saying anything bad. It's just that I still have people who will, on the anniversary of his death or his birthday, will reach out and just say, "Hey, how are you doing? Are you okay?" And it's not funny. But
it is to me. That's funny.
The kids and I have had things happen where we're howling with laughter and the people around us are like,
yeah,
"That's not funny." Like not too long after he died, I had to take Sarah to the doctor and I was really tired, but it was like a couple of years.
Okay.
But I'm filling out this form and you had to say mother's name, father's name or whatever. And there was a place to say that he was deceased. But I wrote diseased. And I started laughing so hard I could not see. Tears were streaming. Sarah's like, what? She sees it. She's howling with laughter.
Yes.
And the nurse is looking at us like we're crazy. And I'm trying to explain. And then that's even worse.
Yeah,
she's like, "Wait, what?"
Wait, you laugh? Are you sure it was suicide? Are you sure it wasn't your... Wow.
And of course, it's because we've been able... Well... It's been a few things. It's because we've been able to have tons of healing, but it's also because I was learning so much that my life circumstances are not who I am.
Totally.
That we were doing the same thing for him. And I'm so glad, I'm so grateful that, and I attribute it to God, that I was able, even in his funeral, to completely honor him. Because he wasn't being who he really was. He was acting out of his past. He was acting out of his crazy thoughts and his own, messed up emotions and stuff. He wasn't being the John that I know he is,
And I think that might have, I mean, not even for him, but just anybody in general, that is the reason why people are depressed. It could be just chemical,
yeah.
Because that I know people who just their brains aren't chemically aligned, but the fact of the struggle is proving that they know that they're not that person. And
Yes,
but
that's
they don't know
good.
how
That's
to
really
they don't
good.
know how to get out of it, which is
Right.
the perpetual cycle of like it's like the negative cycle that happens.
Right.
They're like, I know I'm not this way, but I don't know how to get out of it. So now
Right.
I'm even worse off than I was.
Right.
And then it just gets a negative spiral.
Right. Right. Because you come up and start to acknowledge that it's there,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have to try to stuff it back down, and then you go even lower.
Yep.
And then,
Yep.
yeah, for sure. And I think I think that my kids, I mean, they had to definitely go through stuff to be able to just get stuff out about even just their own childhoods, and not just him, but me. I was a mess, and all of that. And so they had their own stuff to really, really work through. But I think because the three of us were able to openly talk all the time, even when he was still living, but he had moved out, that that we knew who he really was.
Right.
And we would talk about him as though who he really was. And so it was way easier for the three of us to continue that afterwards, and after he was gone. And to be able to laugh about stuff and not. So my kids weren't the daughter of a guy who killed himself.
Right.
Like they didn't have that label. They, I mean, it was just what happened again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that was really key. And I love the fact that when I was driving over here, I love the fact that with my childhood and how really messed up it was, and my mom was really the catalyst of most of it. My dad certainly had a lot of play in it as well, but that she was the one that instilled it in me to look for the good and to know that there is good. And so that was really cool for me to realize that I could have just taken all the negative about her and from her and whatever, and just that could have really marked me as who I was. But really what marked me was her ability through all her depression, through all the stuff she went through, to be able to find good in lots of things and people and whatever. So I don't know if that's making sense, but it's that thing that's carried through my life. And I think it's the thing that gets me in a thunderstorm and I'm like, this is freaking awesome, instead of terrified and in the corner like, we're all going to die. You know?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I've been through 10 cars in 15 years.
With accidents?
Not all accidents.
Oh, wow.
But two of them were totaled.
Oh my gosh.
A couple of them were accidents that I just sold off. And then a few of them I just drove into the ground. But it's just interesting to think, like, I've had 2 totaled cars. And currently, I drive for a living.
Oh, yeah.
So...
Should you say that?
I'm good. My driving record is perfect. All of that happened within the first 6 years of driving.
Oh, yeah.
So
wow.
Yeah. I haven't had a speeding ticket since 24, so 7 years ago. Like, it all happened early in my life, so it's not like... But anyways, it's just funny because it's just like I could be afraid of driving.
Yep, sure.
Which I've had a lot of my riders are that way. Not because I'm driving, but because that's the reason why they're taking ride shares, because they have had accidents and they're too afraid to get back behind the wheel.
Wow.
So they'd just rather have someone else drive.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I've had a few of those.
That is a very cool way that you took bad things and made something super good out of it. Yeah.
I'm adrenaline junkie, so I like adrenaline. It's a good internal medicine cabinet there.
Yeah.
But so so you used that to catapult yourself into a trajectory of self-awareness, self growth, I guess.
Yeah.
Would you think that you would be who you are today if that didn't happen?
That's a really great question. And no, I don't think I would. I think the path that I was going down, well, maybe that was too quick of an answer. I think who I intrinsically am
Yeah,
has always been here,
totally.
trying to get out. So it just might have taken longer.
Yeah.
Because for sure, I mean, if I had married someone else and had different kids and I still would have been the me that had gone through that childhood. And so
Yep.
I still would have been the me that could potentially have abused my own kids.
Yeah.
And so that could have been a part of what, because that was the beginning of me working on me. Before it was like I was just not working on him, but almost working for him,
Right.
you know, and for John. And but realizing that no, I don't have it all together. I'm a mess actually, and I could actually hurt my own children. That's what got me started on that journey of, oof, we got to do something about this, not just do something about that. I got to do something about this. And so, but I think here's what I know, and this is going to sound super weird. I know that I would not understand the depth of the beauty of life had I not gone through that. And, you know, there's all the, whatever, the sayings that people love to have. And,
Oh yeah.
you know, live your life fully today because you never know if you'll have tomorrow, and just all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But when you go through something with that depth of grief and pain that you would never wish on your worst enemy, like that depth of ripped openness, then suddenly it's like this is going to sound so weird, but it's like digging this ditch so deep, but then suddenly realizing, oh my gosh, the vastness of this. It's almost like looking at the clouds in a lightning storm. Instead of like that lightning bolt's going to kill me, it's this, when the clouds are that big, you see the immenseness of the sky that you don't normally notice how big. You notice a cloud here and a cloud there and the sun and whatever. But when that cloud is so huge, it's when you go, oh my gosh. And it was like that. I had that moment of the depth of the grief. And then suddenly I felt that much more open to have that depth of love, actually, all the way down in there. And I started to realize how much of a surface person I had been.
Oh God.
But I really thought that I was a very loving, very, you know, I loved people.
Totally.
But man, all of a sudden, this depth of this huge well just opened up that hadn't been there. And so that is something for sure that I wouldn't have had I not gone through John killing himself, which is, so in that way, now my belief is that John's in heaven and that I'm going to see him again. And so in that way, it's another way that I honor his life, not his death and the way he did it, but his life is by not closing that thing back up again for any safety reasons or anything, just leaving it wide open to just love out of that depth. I don't know if that sounds way too much.
No, I get it. No, it's yeah, because when I think it's like statistically now it's proven like 10 minutes by the ocean causes like I think it's 10 minutes or half hour. I don't know what the time frame is, but literally the chemicals, the negative chemicals inside you drop down just by the ocean because you see the vastness of it.
Wow.
And you realize, I don't know the specifics on it, but it's like just sometime by the ocean. And that's probably why surfers are so chill as well.
Yeah.
It's because they understand how small they are in the world.
Yes.
Because they're getting beat up by waves all the time.
Right.
And they're like, oh, wow, I'm nothing in this whole thing.
Right.
Size-wise.
There's so much more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then it's like, wow, I'm just on Earth. And then it's like, wow, okay. But so they're just like, just chill. They're like always just chill.
Yeah.
And it's not the culture. It's they just understand. They have a different understanding, a deeper understanding of it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Yes. And again, going back to what we were saying before of living on purpose, it's you can live. It's so easy to live that surface life of going to work. Who are you? Well, I'm a salesperson. Who
Right.
are you? Well, I'm, whatever. I'm a millionaire. And you label, and then you just live like that, just that surface.
Yep.
And you go on vacations and you have fun and
Yep.
you love your kids but there's just something about on purpose
Totally.
living that helps you deep dive into emotion and truly being alive. And
when you find your passion, it's no matter what it is. Somehow I stumbled upon this YouTube channel. This is before I started this, but that once I found this one YouTube channel, I was like, all right, if this person's getting 2 million views on this one thing, then I can do my own podcast. The person does marble racing.
wow. Like two people racing each other with their what? Tell me about this.
There's like multiple different colors, and he sets it up as like an Olympic and does voiceovers as if it's Olympic commentary. It's a whole channel, and this guy's passionate about marble racing. And I said, if this guy can do this, and there's I watched.
Have at it.
Watched.
Go for it.
So many of his videos, and each one's like 15 minutes long because there's like a setup, and then there's like marbles in the stands that are all certain colors, and it's like, and the crowd goes wild, and he has sound effects and all this stuff, and I'm like, this is so entertaining. It's crazy. That person's passionate about that.
Yes.
He also might be working a job at CarMax or whatever, but
right.
But he's not a salesperson.
Right.
That's who he is.
Yes.
He
He's
loves
creative. He's
very creative.
Yes. Yep.
And so, yeah, it was very entertaining. I watched a couple hours of it. But hey, my hat is off to you because you're getting paid now because it's a couple million views per.
No kidding.
And so he's getting paid on YouTube
Pretty
too.
good.
Yeah. So somehow I got off track on that. We were just talking about living on purpose, though.
Right. No, finding your passion is what we were talking about.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, for sure. And not just living the surface life of going through the motions,
Totally.
but really connecting to who you are and connecting to, we all have a purpose. We're all here for a reason. And it doesn't have to be one reason, because that's the thing that makes a lot of people crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Is they keep trying to find that one thing.
Yep.
And and then don't connect to it, and it's frustrating and whatever. But
yeah, or you can find like you can find something that you're super passionate about now, and then it might die off in 5 years, and then it's like, oh, okay, well, then in that process you find something else, and then it's like, and so just chapters in your life.
Yeah.
Instead of seeing...
Sarah talks about, and I know she got it from someone, and I don't know who, but
Sarah's your daughter.
Yes, Sarah, my daughter. It might be like Brene Brown or someone like that, but but her favorite thing to do is, she calls it chasing her curiosities. It's the greatest thing to do. Yeah, because and that's another way to find out who you are.
Yes, find out what you don't like.
What you do. Right, try something and go, no, that wasn't it. Or try it and go, oh my gosh, that was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love marbles.
Yeah. And don't
not
do
making
don't
fun of
do
that
all
guy,
the,
but-
yeah, no, not making fun of that guy's awesome. I'll show you a video afterwards or something. But yeah, oh yeah, I did that all my 20s. And got into a lot of business debt because I did a lot of it through business stuff, and I did it with
Right.
debt instead of just out of profit. But I had to try a bunch of things in my 20s. So now that I'm in my early 30s, I'm like, okay, got it. I need a stable job now, and stable income rather, and so that I could pay that off, but also give me the freedom to do what I knew deep down really what I wanted,
Yeah.
which is entertainment.
Yeah.
But I was too scared to do it, and I
Yes.
got all the no's with that or with that or with that. I tried so many different things, and I just had no no's left, and I was like, okay, fine, I'll go into entertainment, into what I actually truly love, and so that's where we're at now. is
Yeah.
talking, and I love diving deep with people and their brains.
Yeah.
And
Very good.
seeing their perspective. Did you bring a song today?
I did.
Okay, cool.
I did. And it's a very well-known one, but in thinking about all of this and what I wanted to be saying, it's Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles.
Okay.
So,
Cool.
because that is the ultimate of, well, here's the thing. So when I was probably 8 or 9, at that point we lived in Potomac, Maryland, and my dad's best friend owned Danac Corporation is what it was called. And they had all these condominiums at Ocean City. And this was back when Ocean City was like really nice, like Rehoboth kind of feel to it, not the Ocean City of today. And so every August they would take us on vacation for a couple of weeks, and it was great. And we would pick an album. I don't know how we did this. Like it started when I was about 9, and we went on through being in high school. And but we would pick an album for the whole time we were there. And so, the Beatles' White Album was one of them, and all that stuff. And my mom was having a tough time on this one particular vacation, and my brother put on Here Comes the Sun, and she loved it and like got addicted to the song. And so I thought, it's a very common, everybody knows the song, but
I don't.
Oh, you don't? Mm-mm. You're going to recognize it, I'm sure.
Yeah,
but
probably.
Yeah. But anyway, so it is just about, don't give up, because the sun's going to rise, and it's right around the corner, and it's coming. So
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's listen to it. We'll talk about, obviously you just talked about why it impacted you, but
yeah,
we'll talk about how I like it and things,
okay,
or what I see as
Good.
well. So we'll be right back, because copyrights. And we're back. We're back. Yeah, I've definitely heard that song before.
Yeah.
It's super popular.
Yes, very popular.
Yeah.
I know. I almost was like, I should pick a different song.
No, it's all good.
It has so much meaning for
Totally.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, and for anyone who hasn't heard it already, but when I listen to music, that's one of the reasons why I did this podcast, is because when I hear music, I get like a music video in my head. And so, yeah, that one was actually pretty simple. And I was just in like a VW bus driving along the California coastline at sunset. Yeah, at sunset. It was like orange. Yeah. It was like super vibrant colors in the sky for that one. But it was like San Francisco coastline, not like San Diego, which that's more flat down there. San Francisco is more like sheer drop-offs. At least from where, like, did you ever see the movie Birds?
The Alfred Hitchcock movie?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. It's been a long time. But
Yeah.
I did. Yeah.
Like when I never saw it, my mom just described it to me. She took me to where they filmed it when I was out there.
Oh,
like
wow. Cool.
17 years ago or something.
Yeah.
That was like 30 minutes south of San Francisco, I think. But yeah, it was like a sheer just drop off. It was a cliff.
Wow.
It was
Yeah.
a cliff drop off.
Yes.
Instead of like a gradual beach, like most people think of beaches.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how it was. So I don't know what that means, but it was beautiful. But it's still dangerous, I guess,
Yeah.
if you weren't paying attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's I mean, that's kind of a vastness sort of thing, like what we've been talking about
Yeah.
all night. That's much more dramatic than the ocean just lapping up on the sand.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was like it would smash against the walls instead.
Right. Right.
Wow. Well, we've done an hour and 20 minutes.
What did happen?
Oh no. No more space on memory cards. That's
Oh,
good.
no.
Did it just happen?
It just happened. That
Perfect.
second.
Heck yeah. Well, that's ended up. All right, everybody. See you later.
Bye.